our first attempt to do. I keep wanting to adjust the screen. This is our first attempt to go live with our chat movie, and hopefully this will be like a once a week thing for us. We will go live once a week. But we do something tonight. Isn't going to be too crazy. I didn't want anything too crazy. I wanted to get started and be able to do a one on one with all of our people. And so I didn't want it to be, I didn't want it to be necessarily earth shattering. What we're going to do tonight, we're going to clean up the food walk coat. And I have a few tools on the standby. I've got some tweezers. I've got some pruners. I've got a brand new set of pruners that I'm really happy with. And mostly what I'm going to do tonight, forgot my mostly what we're going to do tonight is actually run by the basics. We're going to weed. We're going to clean up uh, our pot that's starting to look like it's showing a little bit of calcium. We get a little bit of calcium damage. And other than that, we're just going to take a little look at this Corcus Super for our Cork bark oak. I'm going to make my way over here. I should get in the show a little better. I've got it set up on the turntable, and the turntable has been also set up. Um, I've got it sitting on a lazy Susan, and the lazy Susan is sitting on my turntable, so I can have this guy spiral around as needed as I need to bring around tools or whatever. So that's kind of it. I don't see a lot. We did a little bit of. We'll just back up. I've been working on this tree for a couple of years. This was one of what I would consider impressive bonsai that, and by impressive, I mean uh, before then, I started a little maple forest, and I planted a clone, and I had probably ordered a John Redwood starter bonsai. None of those were particularly impressive. I like it, but they weren't particularly impressive. And COVID hit. And during COVID, I was just sitting pretty much right here where you see me now. You can at this computer that I keep trying to look at. Watching bonsai videos, just absorbing everything I could. And whenever, so I started to learn a little bit about what bonsai gardens were in my area, in my neighborhood. And I found out that about 30 miles from here in the Bay Area was an elderly gentleman who had a landscaping uh, bonsai business. He would do both part of the week. And in his place, uh, his name is Johnny Steeler. So at first, when I first found out about it, I discovered that it was also, when I first heard about it, it was closed. It was closed for COVID. So yeah, that was a bit unfortunate. But I kept checking back, and then they got a thing where they would open uh, part days a week. And the first day I saw that I had an opportunity to go, I went. I drove straight out here to go see my first bonsai garden, uh, Groveway. I believe it's still going today. Johnny Cedar had a couple of years ago passed away. Whenever I bought this tree, I was dealing with his son. In fact, it was a bit interesting. I was bringing his grass, and this tree was on the bench, and the garden was a mixture of grand and underwater. It was clear to even a beginner like me that COVID had, uh, as you could imagine, was making it hard for people to maintain their businesses, mom and pop businesses. So they had a bunch of trees, maples, and some Japanese black pine. A whole lot of Japanese black pine. They did have some really, really big uh, landscape Japanese black pine that were probably several $1,000 trees. And they, as well as one empire size bonsai tree that had several famous people lay hands upon it and compress that tree. It was kind of at the entrance. It was like your flagship. And then when I went inside, I saw one of the beautiful maples I had ever I had ever seen. And he could have told me anything, and I would have bought probably. But what he told me was is he was looking forward to putting it in the show, and the whole shop was really proud of the tree, and that it was that it wasn't for sale. And I thought that was so. I thought that was so cool. He had me right there. You know, uh, I was about ready to play. How much is it? I have that right here. I can't always play that game, but that particular time I could. So um, I didn't get too involved with that. I just kind of saw the way the wind blew that they were really really looking forward to putting that tree in the show, and that was kind of like the family. That was kind of like the family pride. You know, how can anybody um, possibly feel good about interfering with that? So I continued to look around this really fantastic bonsai garden, and there was this thing. And by this thing, I mean it had this trunk. It was just like this massive teeth, and it's not like it's at all fragile. You know, it's just a massive hump of wood going on here, and it just puts out shoots now prolifically. But as I saw it at the time, it had a lot of brown leaves, and and it looked kind of octopus out a little, but it had a lot of short branches and a lot of dead leaves. And I thought it's probably been underwater. The trees, this variety, is known to be hardy or drought hardy. And I could see if you were calling people to come water your garden or to help water your garden during times of heat, or if you were the one who was using all of your energy by yourself to water one kind of a 3 or 4 person job, I can see where you would keep it in your head the trees that were drought hardy and focus more of your attention on on the other thing, on like that maple still needed to be careful. You know, there is no way the maple that I saw that I was just going on out there for a second would uh, would look like it did if it went as long in the water as what it looked like. It was suffering from, and I hadn't put it together. So a couple of leaves over here, a couple of leaves over here, and it took me a minute to realize that the couple of leaves over here, a couple of leaves over here, was because the branch went up and did that. That was like a whole limb. So when I got it home and I saw this dead leaf belongs to this limb and this limb belongs to this dead branch, uh, and then started cutting all that stuff back. Then I kind of saw what we were up against. And on one hand, I had read enough about them to know that they were a pretty good tree for beginners. If you keep this guy watered, um, you keep this guy watered, it'll thrive. You know, it's not a whole lot. It's not like my Japanese white pines where it's not enough that you're willing to water. You have to know how much to water, or that'll be the next thing you do wrong, kind of a thing. You know, these guys, if you want to water out of them, they will, they will counter that by putting in more buds, more shoots, more of everything. So, of course, I thought turning up the water a little bit from giving it a little bit done, but it was getting too little, and there was to fertilization, some other things. I figured we would kind of come across that or figure that out at the time. But what I was noticing was, after I cut back a lot of the dead branches, I was looking at how skeletal the tree looked and how much work we had to do. And it was kind of in a way of relief to know that it had taken out of my hands uh, the sacrilege of possibly wrecking something that was beautiful. And it still looked beautiful to me, but I knew that looking at the foliage as it was, we had our work to do. And I was going to get the opportunity to learn to do it. It wasn't like some picture perfect Japanese black hole. I can't do it there. No, you keep it like that. This thing was going to, it was going to look perfect. It was going to have to be because I had figured out how to do that and had made that happen. And that was kind of actually, it felt like something that certainly felt doable. But I didn't know how. And this tree would do something that's funny. And I've heard other people say it too. They'll grow really long shoots. And then all of this stuff back here will die back. And so you've got a long shoot with a little fluff on the end. And maybe you can bend that up and pretzel it and bring it back closer, but it's still a long limb and it's just got a little bit on the end. And so they don't like to keep that, necessarily keep that close stuff going when way out there on the tip where the action is. So that ended up being the key to it. Sometime later, I would start because I was deficient in a few things. I would learn that I needed to pick up the water and game on this guy. It wasn't going to hurt it if I picked up the water and game. It would help. So we did that, and then I was also I had it in the back of my mind that I had if I went in and started fertilizing my bonsai trees and I didn't know what I was doing, that I could run the risk of stretching. That's actually what I was afraid of. I didn't know the relationship between fertilizing and getting mass where you want it and fertilizing and getting something elongated out in some way that just totally messes up your tree and you're not pro enough to deal with it or pro enough to know how to stop it in time or something like that. So in the back of my mind, I'm kind of just giving you the list of reasons why I had not to be proactive on the fertilization of this tree. Um, that was a mistake. The other mistake was I was afraid to prune back my elongated branches. My elongated branches, like I described earlier, get a long branch out here, a little bit of fluff on the end. Maybe you would hope the branches back here would do stuff, so you put them back, but instead of continuing to grow, they don't do anything because out here on the end is where the action is. It seems like the tree would rather do something out here than do something in here close. So all those things that you're trying to cut back to get to bifurcate off, that doesn't happen. All of that dies off, and the only thing that's happening is on the end, and you end up with a longer, waspier looking thing, and you've got this tree with all these long twisted up limbs with little fluff on the end, and not much else in the way of foliage. not a really good one. And it makes you where you don't want to cut that ugly stuff off the end because that's the only game you've got. And if you go, well, that doesn't look really good, I'll just cut that off. And then you're like, well, you know, the feeling is that you will just cut everything off the tree, and then what? What are you going to do? Then? Does he have enough energy to panic and put out something else, or did you just in fact, shut it down? So all of that paranoia and all of that worry and all of that stuff. And here's what the reality is: we needed to up the watering more. What I was seeing about those elongated shoots is absolutely true. The end of the shoot, wherever it's in, that's where the tree has apical dominance. And the apical dominance tells the tree where it should be uh, putting out its energy, what is worthwhile, and what is a zero gain. If a branch or a limb is a zero gain for a tree, most of the time, most species of tree will not leave it around very long. That's why we see dieback, that's why we do dieback on our trees. So the answer is, and the other part of the reason, um, where we see the ends of the limbs collect hormones, and that the tree is just pushing hormones all over the tree and stuff, and they um, collect the highest amount of these hormones in places that have that apical dominance. That tells it to push more, put out more stuff there, continue, continue what's going on there. So, uh, continue that trend is basically what it's saying. Um, and when you cut those ends, what you are then doing is releasing that chemical, those hormones. And that chemical and those hormones are oxygen. And when you release the oxygen, kind of like the running kind of how I always take that one. When you release those oxygen, you are also sending a flood of hormones throughout the tree, which tells the other limbs and parts of the tree that the part of the tree that had been apical dominant is no longer apical dominant, and all bets are off. All buds could be the next key. They don't know. They might be the top of the tree, and they just don't know it yet. So what that will do is the thing that I was afraid to do was cut the end of those really long branches. But as soon as I started cutting the ends off of those really long branches, the result of that was I started getting more back buds because the tree would start. That was just its signal to put out more back buds. Cause and effect. So up the watering, we started getting accelerated in bud growth. As far as oaks goes, I've got a coastal oak. It's also an evergreen. It puts out stuff all year round, but in the winter it slows down quite a bit, and in the winter this slows down a little. At the same time, I can always see trees keep up in their pot because when they're slowing down here, they're still going pretty fast. They pick up down here and start their root growth and stuff, and they get not just kind of eat up out of their pot. So that's kind of what's going on there. When I figured out about the feeding, what I figured out was to go with a low dose fertilizer. I go organic. I'm not really big into the synthesized stuff. I go organic, and I go with this. I'm not getting paid by them, but I go with BioGold. And what I do is I put about about a 4x4 area and 3 or 4 little squares of bottle gold, which size wise, if you were to take a regular size Tootsie Roll, with the 2 and break off those things, it's about the same size as one of these lumps of bottle gold when they're fresh, and they smell like mint. I think they treat them like I think they treat them in mint or something, so that the animals won't be attracted to them and they don't lose the animals on the way over here. So because whenever you open the bag and smell the fertilizer to see what it's going to be doing to your neighbor or to your balcony, the first thing I get is mint, and it doesn't ever smell bad. I have used stuff that stinks to high heaven, but what this is just a lot. 4 of those in the area that I was talking about. So it would get like 4 here, 4 here, 4 here, 4 here, 4 here, 4 here. And as you water again, as you begin to water your trees, you start to see those lumps break down. You will begin to see your moss pick up and thicken and go hyperactive. I started noticing mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza definitely did that, especially like in my Japanese black lung, and that was again that was a big boost to the growth of this of the Cork Park of it started. We're still talking about bud and what we want to do to get it to put out more of them. So even though they're drought hardy, uh, don't try to think like watering it just a little bit every once in a while. We give it just a tiny bit of water so that it moves slowly, so that it grows super all for a long time. If you're in stages of development, you're going to want to grow a certain amount. You're going to want to grow a certain amount of stuff to get your base going, and then you get your secondary, and you get your tertiary, and then after that, uh, what we have had to do is once we learn how to do that, we learn to do that by increasing our water, by learning to fertilize. We also learn to run systemic through our trees twice a year. It's time for me now. The next time I go out tomorrow will be a good time to do that. Run twice a year. I'm going to systemic through all the trees, and we just the teaspoon to a ratio that has to do with how many gallon size of the pot is. And I divide the balcony up into trees that are this size and above and trees that are this size and below. And uh, based on this is this is my Cork consumer Cork Park oak. I just glanced over and saw that we had a little bit of chat going on here. Welcome. That's kind of the whole point of this was to not do any real brain surgery, but to do the kind of things where I can chat back with the members of our group. So um, welcome, Dave, and welcome, Malhook. So yeah, um, like I said, I've had this tree for a few years. It came from Johnny Cedar. Last year we had a little issue with powdery mildew. These things get powdery mildew pretty easy. Also, sometimes that flips out pretty easy. the natural state of these leaves is a little silvery. It's just a little silvery. And also, they do get powdery mildew. You can see sometimes when it's raining or something, and then when it quits and the sun comes out, everything ups with the mold a little bit. Maybe it's exchanging leaves, and the old leaves aren't as resistant to powdery mildew as the new ones are. So you see powdery mildew on some of your dead leaves, so you start trying to pluck those off, even though they're just dead. So you kind of have this in your mind, and I told you a little bit about our rebuild and what we were going to do, Scott, over time, and it hurt. To think about maybe. So I started spraying for powdery mildew, and my go-to powdery mildew is corn and always has been neem. However, up until then, it hadn't really been an issue last year, and I think unless the concentration use scissors, these are just exactly like my first pair of bonsai scissors. But the reason I got them is because one, I love my first pair. Two, between the two of them, I'll always, I think it'll be easier for you always. So, it's just, yeah, I think I get mine. Excuse me, I still have leaf cutters, damage up there by leaf cutters, but we also have spiders, so hopefully my bowl is getting them. But like I was saying about, I treated a small amount of powdery mildew, and then I might have saw uh, more powdery mildew that needed to be treated, or I might have just been looking at kind of how silvery the bottoms of the leaves can look, and thinking that I was seeing powdery mildew. Maybe what I like. Uh, so I'm not sure. I'm not really sure if I brought that on myself or not. That's a shame. That it bifurcated off really nice. Give that a minute to make sure it knows it's gone. Um, and there's not a whole lot to cut off here. We just did this a few weeks ago, and the trees have just now started. You have one like that? This tree started off as a, I believe this was an air layer. When I did a repot of this tree, underneath, that's what it didn't have to be. That could have been a taproot. It was a cut that was so fresh, it had bark up to it and just flat across. And it looked like to me, like maybe as a full-rank limb or something, this might have this might have been an interlude. So, yeah, it's been a very rewarding tree to have. I would say amateurs can keep a cork alive fairly easily. To get them to ramify like you want them is a learning process. Not hard. It's trying on the patient if it doesn't go well. But otherwise, really been enjoying this tree. And I've had some talk before about, when I first got this tree, I named it Log. And I think that's still, I named it Log because that's kind of, it's just a big log. It's pretty good. And, that's fitting enough. But we are working on it. We are, I want it to be something in proportion. So to be this tall, to have a canopy that would be in proportion would take it out to there somewhere. I'm 64. I'm going to be 65 years old next August. So, uh, you know, I'm not. So I had thought about other things that I might consider when it comes to log. Uh, Giving it a cut down here, like right in here or something, and starting this and this, making a canopy up here, and building something that's this fat. Because it has this roll here. It just has this nice roll. And something else. These guys get so sick with the amount of bark that they make. that log could have started out as a wired as a wired tree. It could have, this could be a spiral 13 years later when it's a cork bark oak. 2 years later when it's a cork bark oak and the bark is that thick. So what was something that came around this way and something that came around that way and then came around this way. Once it just overinflates that big, all of that, oh, you can see that the bark is running that way. I can see over, because I've gotten to know the tree. I kind of can see the story that it's telling. At first, I kind of look at it like it's an abstract, but I see bark that was this way and then folds over on itself. Like that could have been a bend, or maybe that was a chop where they had did a wedge cut. Perhaps. If there's a line right here, and the tree just kind of comes down slightly, and you can see that the bark runs that way, back and then comes up and goes back this way. And even on the other side of the tree, you can see that the bark is all running towards those same those same movements. So, it might have been that it did that on its own. But I guess that was at one point. It's a very, very dramatic, it's a pretty dramatic movement that probably lost some of its character. And, well, it gains character too by being this massive, you know, honking. Hey, look at that. His base is just coming out, and below there, it's hard, but it's not thick yet. Uh, I cleaned all of this back and wanted to see if I had more gold like this. Uh, that tree just running down through there. Yeah. So this is just I'm looking through here. Oh, there's some stuff. Looking through here. What else I've learned to do is not just to let it run those limbs super far out. I do let it do that on my coastal. I'll let those limbs just elongate way out all year, and then in the fall I'll clip them back, and then from there they can bifurcate out. We start over again in the spring after they bifurcate out. I'll let those grow. But on this one, it'll do that thing where all the emphasis, and it will grow so fast that if I do put it back a couple of times in the summer, talk about multiple flushes. And if I don't do that, I won't get multiple flushes. Instead of getting multiple flushes, I'll get one flush that is elongated out so far. I have to that when I cut it off, I'm not, I will have wasted a lot of the year growing stuff that ends up being chopped. So nothing right now is too long. I'm just eliminating. Uh, I'm eliminating a few dirty, a few split in, and there's not that many. Look at this tree is. So what did Pat learn last year? Last year, I one. I do think I'll let my name get too strong. I tighten. How are you? I tighten. I think I let my name get too strong, and when I finally started putting the name on it, I let it get too strong. I didn't. I mixed it up early in the year and probably added to it once or twice, but we didn't have that much of a problem most of the year. So by the time I got around to using that bottle, it probably evaporated off a lot of the water. I have noticed that the tree was especially oily when I got done spraying it with you, but I went, well, what is it? And two, I felt like a belligerent mom who had just, this will either cure them or kill them kind of attitude when moms get me stuff done. And that wasn't, yeah, that's gone. And that wasn't the right attitude. Buzzer goes off and says, "Oh, well, I got to do all that wasn't necessarily healthy." So at first, I kind of freaked out. Well, Neiman always been your go-to, and this doesn't look like Neiman is your best friend right now. So it took me a minute, but the other thing that other people had always used, and I'm not against it. I just never felt like I needed the other close proximity thing that people use, which is dish soap, diluted dish soap. That's a shame. I'm looking at something that's just exactly like perfect. Yeah, that's like picture perfect, just exactly like what you want. And branches bifurcating off, and there it was. Yeah, just as part of the first world problem. Okay, so I'm going through here and I'm flipping back some of this stuff that's long getting down a whole lot. And I'll flip it again here. I'll put that in. Persuade people. That back also, when you put a branch back, look at the last leaf that you're leaving. Got a branch. I'm going to cut back. I'm going to cut it off to here. And when I cut it off to here, there's a leaf sticking out there. Guess which way that it's going to bifurcate out? It's going to send the branch out that way. That that leaf that's left, that's likely going to be the next bud side. Yeah, I had to calm down about the neem because I had always had I'd been using neem for like 15 years, and I'm like, well, these bad results. And I'm like, why did you have bad results? And then I'm like, because you were probably squirting it down with something that was really wrong dose of neem once the water evaporated off, and that just clogged up the stomach or whatever on the leaves, and you were losing stuff from that when all was said and done just as much. But I do have some Dawn mixed up, and when I some Dawn dishwashing heavily diluted, I've got that on standby in the water in my water bottles outside. So that if the next time I see that, that's going to be what I reach for this time around, and we'll see how that goes. Also, I might have been bringing that partially on myself by seeing that silvery color that cork bark oak leaves have, just on the bottom of the leaves. They're kind of silvery anyway, and I might have taken that as early set in of powdery mildew and started treating stuff that. See, this is after the fact. I may not have done that, but I'm concerned that I may have treated stuff that wasn't even. Lot of little buds, those little white flowers, oak flowers, all over this thing. And all the, to my knowledge, I hadn't cut either of those off. Those suckers, little stuff that some little twigs I see that are sticks of cutting those back. Sticks, I mean, anything I see that's already died back, if I clip it, maybe we can clip it back to a blood tissue, maybe we can to bifurcate out with something that's that's too long. Yeah, these scissors are great. I like having a new pair. I'm going to cut that off. I like having a new pair of a new pair of trimming scissors. Steel. Japanese steel. Um, I didn't want a different pair. I've got several pairs of these. The other pair of these are my favorite, and I thought that rather than use them, just use them, that I would get it. I would get a second pair and just try to make sure I always wanted to wear it to go at all times. And that's kind of the idea here. That is the guy is the first time with these guys. I'm very, very happy uh, with how short they are, how easy they are to use, and how they don't turn on their operator by teaching. Where I'm deciding to make my cut, when one of these comes out, it will come out a little ways, and there'll be a lift, and then there'll be a little bit of a nose, and that nose will be a little longer. That last one is what I always call third gear, because in my little motorhead mentality, I see that as the winding out. First, second, third, there you go. Winding out. And if I want to keep it short, tight, and I'm not trying to grow your tree that doesn't have any branches, I'm just trying to make them over time. I don't want something long and rainbowing out. I'd rather have two than four, than eight, than 16, 32, just keep working it out that way. And then somewhere along in there, we will have had enough branches where we will start making decisions over some of the stuff that we decided to keep that we didn't necessarily want to keep, but we needed to keep stuff. We can start knocking some of that stuff out, and the refinement of your tree goes up from there, and that's how that's what I'm working on here, and we're getting better at it. We're not without our problems. We're getting better at it. And a Corcus suber is one of those trees that will help you with the fight another one. Yeah, it is. It's Saturday Night Live. Um, exactly an original one. I've had original ideas, but this is the idea behind this is I'm not necessarily going to set the world on fire. We're probably not going to be doing slump chops necessarily, or we might have some dramatic content. Last fall, I put a bonsai jack to a Yamadori ponderosa. That was a fun show for me. That was a 45-minute, hour-long show for me where I single-handedly did the stuff that a lot of times you see a couple of guys with their buddies do. I had to figure out ahead of time how I was going to keep from getting it by myself trying to do that thing and hoping I didn't break something. Uh, Me on the tree. And I think that went pretty well. That would have been a fun show to do. But like tonight, uh, I have enjoyed this trip so much, and I thought of this idea literally about 30 minutes before we went live last weekend, and it took me 4 attempts of hitting the go live button before we actually did go live. And then on the fourth attempt, when it did go live, for some reason, the live chat was turned off. But I know that I in the live mode before. But however that happened, it was the first one that just kind of blew it off like that. And that was just going to work. It worked, and that made it possible for tonight's show. And tonight, hopefully, y'all can hear me okay. Tonight, the microphone on our camera was better than the microphone that was working off of the laptop. I can see the play button of my laptop. I don't know why. Meanwhile, we'll be doing this, and this is unique. So while we're doing this, we are sure to have a little bit of we can drop food. Uh, Give me a second to figure it out because nobody's going to be watching the next video going there often. I'm going to have to one, wake up notice. Two, hit refresh on your side. Probably I don't want to stop those. Hit refresh on your side, and I'll put it back together and come back up on my side. And I'll make a point to always do that, if nothing else, if just to say audio for the night. You know, so that'll be our secret from now on, in case something ever we run across it. They got the whole line speed. Man, I think this could be a cool way to stay and keep in touch with y'all and y'all me. And I like seeing a group of people here. This is kind of all I'm really interested in. Uh, Not a massive amount of cleanup on here. I'm just kind of, and anything that's got a fresh little flower on the end of it, I'm not even, it's like whatever the spring flower situation is. Uh, there's no reason really to keep that above anything else except that I don't have to, and flowers go a long way with me. So those are taught me different things that it does in springtime. I'm leaving all of those alone. And we'll let it flush out. But whenever I see something like a dead twig or a dead stick, cut that back. And I think I've already gotten most of the stuff that's elongated out. What I call the stuff that gets played here. Now, all right, we're gonna call that. Uh, we're gonna call that done. Nice job, new shears. I got those from Bonsai tonight. Jonas over at Bonsai tonight. And yeah, both pair. I got the first pair 4 years ago, and I really want them. So when I heard the phone scissors were getting hard to come by, I thought that I would, I thought that I would uh, jump it today to just turn it on. So this is two consistent rack, and it is manual. Johnson manual. Often found around the oil and maybe or all questions uh, from what part of the baby that oil comes. But anyway, this is Johnson baby oil, and it does make unglazed pots very nice. Also, what makes them look good, and people have debated this with me a time or two, but I stand by it. What also looks really good is get rid of walnut. Uh, Walnut oil, as it takes walnut and put them in a bag or something, and just dump them into a bowl. And then if you rub down, if you rub down the unglazed brown or purple place. Nothing wrong with that. It'll look good. And people have told me uh, any any type of peanut oil will do that. It will, but we're not with that. Or, or it, or it smell, or it'll turn rancid when it dries. It'll get a rancid smell. And uh, walnut oil doesn't. It will get rid of calcium. It will get rid of calcium. To water as opposed to just making them look wet. And that's kind of like, that's kind of like, but I learned this trick watching was watching kids at Bonsai in Japan. On their, on their, I'm telling you, when it comes to watching the guys in Japan, somebody said, uh, talking about not being aware of women in bonsai. And, at any given time, I could just tell you over a dozen. But one of the people that I have learned a lot from watching her videos is Kimi Bonsai in Japan because her work with pine is really, really good. And somebody else who I enjoy watching, is a bit of an amateur, is Maris from Canada with frostbite body. Folks are always, always. And it's interesting to see uh, how different people uh, work around whatever bonsai presents them. If it presents them snow, you know, then uh, then that's going to dictate what you grow, where you grow, and where it is in the winter. You know. But yeah, quite a few people whose programs I have enjoyed over the years, and still do. I love this. I love this community that we're a part of. I think it's I think it's pretty much an honor to be a part of this group. Yeah. Okay. This moss. Couple of things. Uh, couple of things I saw there. One, yeah, leaving your tools out, man. Also, I don't have kids. Uh, Even if you don't leave your tools out, there seems to always be somebody else who is willing to in your absence. I was that person in my family for years. Run over dad's tools with the lawnmower that I myself had drug out into the yard for reasons that I no longer remember why I would. But that would have been my job. What I found also when it comes to putting oil on my scissors, I don't want to put oil on my scissors now, right? Put sewing machine oil or 3M oil or something cutting oil on your scissors to make them work nice, and then get that in your tree. Solve it. I don't really know whether that's something I should be worried about. So just go around that. I go with food grade olive oil. So I've got a jar of virgin olive oil that I kind of keep my tools wiped down with, and that's about all the water they get on them. Whenever it comes to sticking my scissors down and cutting roots and stuff, I have some cheap stainless steel bonsai tools that I do that with, and I keep the hardened, glued black steel stuff out of the mud as much as possible. Now I have gotten it wet, but I haven't left it wet long enough to rust yet. That's partially because I'll leave them oiled up with food grade food. That would be my tip. That would be my tip on it. And also, I don't have a bench. It's technically outside, so I don't have that to worry about. If I left something outside, it would still be on a covered balcony. It wouldn't be in the backyard next to on a monkey pole or something next to a tree getting rained on, where I wouldn't see it. But it's a little different, just the balcony. So that's kind of how I was able to keep my tools a little happening a little bit, but also I am that person that would be pretty upset with me if I left any tools out in the rain because I have before, but I'm that kind of person that would be pretty upset with me for doing and now the other question was about how do I get this moss? It's deep and spongy. Um, couple of things, couple of quick things on the moss. One, uh, find a moss that is already doing well on that tree. Say you've got a little spot of moss that's about this big, and it kind of came up volunteer. So that's a moss that A likes where you live, B likes that tree already. All right. So then what I would do is take some peat moss or sphagnum moss, shred it, shred it, shred it really, really, really good. Then go back and take your little lump of moss, and I say dry it out. I've heard people say not to, but I'll pull it up, I'll pull up a little biscuit, and I'll let that dry completely out. And then I'll run that through the colander, the same as with that sphagnum moss. And then once I've done that, sprinkle that back over the whole thing, and then uh, water it in. And it takes a little while, but it'll take back over. And I've done this to this tree, and I've done this to the coastal. And the coastal has almost got itself to the point now. It's almost covered the whole pot, but it's covered like this. And also the biofilm makes this happen too. The biofilm also stains the moss where it lays, but it's also feeding it, making it extra happy. So the moss helps facilitate the mycorrhiza and keep all of that part happy, helps maintain the moisture balance in your trees, but at the same time, the biogold gives you the all the stuff you need to stop mycorrhiza and make sure that you've got that going on. Like sometimes when you do whenever you something to keep down an insect, you have to go back through and make sure that you've got some micro stuff in that soil. Put it exterminated whenever I do my treatments twice a year. So the biogold helps that. The moss helps that. The biogold helps the moss. The thing about the treatment about getting it going even is with take some sphagnum moss and shred it. Take the moss that you like for the trees, shred it, add them together, put them liberally over the pot, water it in. That should get going. I've also heard people say when they wanted it to look green faster than it would actually take over, they sprayed it with food dye. I don't know. I don't. I water it every day. I water this. I water this one and the other coastal oak every single day. All make sure all sides have water that runs all the way through. This one's harder to water. I have to water it. It comes back over and water it again and come back to it and water it again. I've had a teacher of mine say to take an ice pick and just go through and go, and put little spike holes. I've had another teacher tell me that when you do that, you can press the soil next to it on either side of that, and the water doesn't really get in anything. I know that the only way I get water in this tree right now is to water it like 2 or 3 times when it comes time to water. So I water this thoroughly through once, go back and through water other things, and come back and see it. And sometimes it's really hot. Eat again. But that's because it's a big tree and slightly underpotted. And I think the substrate is getting fairly might be getting fairly tight in there. It's acting like it did last year. I did a rake out where you just kind of go you kind of rake out all those roots that are pressed firmly up against the side of the pot, and you're at a standstill. It won't allow those roots won't allow it to take in any water. So I did a whoop all the way down to the bottom, turn the tree around, did it all the way down the other side, turn the tree around, did it all the way down to the bottom. And you see them take off after that because the roots were, it's happiest when the roots are expanded. And when the roots are pressed all the way up against, pressed up all the way against all four sides of the bottom, that's kind of where you go. So, yeah. All right, that's all four sides with the baby oil, and that is a cleanup of our clover. If you can see over here, or over here, a little bit of staining on here where the biogold breaks down. Uh, Stain a little bit. Also, this is the side that has been facing outside. This is the side that faces the Dell Soul. And when I water this, I have to reach through the tree and water this. And I can't always hold my head out of the balcony to see. It looks like it's all it's scalded on this side. Maybe I'm not watering it long enough. I can see that I'm hitting the gel. I'm not watered off and over and all that. So it might not be good enough, or it might be just on beating down on it there. Nothing short of more water and help with that. So that's kind of got it. I think this is kind of a success of what we can see all. At some point, I'll probably yeah, a lot of clover. I've got clover all over the balcony. It's been pulling, you know, been clover. I've been a clover pulling fiend here lately. But thank you all for coming. I think this is exactly what I hoped we would do. We'll do this again next Saturday night live Bonsai. Uh, in the meantime, tomorrow we'll do another little show in the sunshine and make that happen. And you guys were here for our first one. Last week was a little nut and bolt if this is going to work, and I couldn't. And we didn't have the channel, so that was just a little solo on it. This was us for real. And thank you all for being here, and have a fantastic weekend.